can't think of a better place to start, my man. No, dude, that was absolutely correct, man. And I think, well, let's pick it up from that very line, man. Let's repeat what you just said then, because it's very eloquent, relating to what we were talking about, feeding back with Wigan Pier.
I was just talking about how, with the internet, especially in context of modern politics and just general social issues, everyone has all the information, but no one has the right information. Everyone's being fed something, but it doesn't lead to, well, as you put it, an adult conversation. It's just everyone, they feed into themselves enough that no one's willing to reach out. And that's the tragedy of the entire thing. The internet offered this great, brilliant thing, and then we've turned it basically into a children's toy, which is really quite disheartening, and we deserve better.
I completely concur with you, my friend, but I mean, I think the thing that has to be said with that, and again, I've been thinking about that as I was relating to you earlier on, you know, when you have a day off radar, you realise that, is this just us now, or is this us as a human species? I mean, was it the same with the Gutenberg press? I mean, that's the same. We do get these tools, and ultimately, I mean, we have to look at it. I mean, it does relate to what you just said, man. It's technology, in a sense, is neutral. It's what we do with it as a species, and it's amazing. Like this, where we are right now, I think it's fascinating because I think, you know, it's the old thing about we've got all this information in our hands, like say Google, but everyone's become this whole what's the analogy? What is it? Everyone's got an inch deep of knowledge, but that's it. And then instead of but again, I think this is what I'm saying. That's why I relate to it. I think we can maybe, I'm being contrary to my own sort of thought here, but maybe we're just as, because we're no different from anyone else when they're being faced with new technology. I mean, it is just a mindset of how we deal with things. And it's more, like I say, my frustration is, and it relates to what you say about Wigan Pier, is this, it's the false information that gets put out there that basically separates from the fact that a lot of us have the same old human experience. Really bring it down to this. What I love about Wigan Pier, Orwell was really good at the very bottom of human experience and said, hey, at the end of the day, we all wake up, we have to eat, we have to feed ourselves, we have to, you know, hopefully if you've got anyone in our lap with you can, you know, share some of the experiences with. We drink home, we sleep, we shit, we repeat, and that's life. And that's like you said, it's only the bullshit like you mentioned, whether it's in Wigan Pier or that gets put into that big open wide ocean of knowledge, and it's people come along to it and dump it full of their information, and before you know it, the whole pond gets filled with this poison, and then people are reacting to the poison water rather than actually treating each other as human beings, if you understand the analogy I'm getting to.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And you brought up an interesting point, because there is that childhood of any technology. Like the Gutenberg press was, you know, originally a worry because it would give like the lower classes a means of information and would kind of destroy the feudal-esque era in which it was built. And so maybe this entire thing is simply a growing pains of us growing into a more conscious species. But it's hard to see that from here, and that's what worries me, is that what if this is the exception? Like what if there's just too many people? Because before it was just uniting communities, you know, small people who spoke the same language. It was, okay, you speak this language, well, here's a pamphlet that says here's the politics of your 25 by 25 mile area, and we think this deserves to be considered. Meanwhile, we're all focused on international politics. I know more about the Prime Minister of China than I do about my own mayor. I know nothing about that guy. I know people's opinions on him, but I have no idea why they feel that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm part of the problem. I'll admit that right now. But like, I mean, I don't feel like that's unnatural. Like there is a very much, everyone's looking for the reactionary aspect of news, of fact. And so we want to be fed these things. And I'm wondering, is that like, you know, I've got a just less than 2-year-old daughter. She feeds on similar things. And with the internet as young as it is that, are we in that same area? And that's interesting to consider. I don't have anything beyond that. It's a really interesting question.
Well, dude, I mean, you're getting into. I think something we kind of scratched upon in our last conversation, and I think I've mentioned this example. You know, that's what I'm saying. When people were on the tube in London going to watch, public hanging, and that's what I'm saying. We're not that far removed from it. This is one of the, I think one of the when I swear, man, my thought process has always been if and when we get to the point when historians are looking back at this time in 100 years' time and they're assessing what happened, how did this all happen? What led to Trump? What led to Brexit? Where did all when they're analyzing this in historical terms, I think one of the things that they will look back and they will see where we are right now. What we're discussing is getting caught in a loop, in the echo chamber loop, and it's caught in this whole idea of where we are. And I think Orwell again, that's why I wanted to talk Orwell, because I think he's just so compassed on this and a lot of issues.
Oh yeah,
was the whole idea of is when language starts to get disseminated. Because I mean, you could argue that sort of saying these future historians will maybe look back and go, oh wow, there was a time when people spoke different languages. Because I could spend the next 45 minutes telling you about technologies that are already in play that you can have an earpiece and understand each other, completely in time. So you can well, that's going to be, I think how that's going to progress. So you think, okay, beyond we're going to look down to is the communication element, and this is one of the things that, like I said, always on about, and he talks about all the time, is the Wigan pier. He mentions it as a metropolitan language about how they describe things, and then you go and talk to the common language and how they see things. It's what they do with language that is the essence of what we're talking about. Like you said, your reason your daughter, like you said, maybe she's becoming fixated, and like I said, we're not that different from those animals we were that 100 years ago watching someone in a public hanging. But what we've become is, dude, it's one of the things that frustrates me about when I talk to people under 25. The way they talk about the 80s, and they think like, oh, we were all going around in the 80s just beating up black people. That women were getting raped in every corner.
In the 80s,
like, hey. Because I'm saying, dude, this is as we all are. When you're in your 20s, you think that the answer is what it is now, and we've invented this whole new modern new world, and we are dude. It's Wigan pier mentality. Oh, we've progressed. We've progressed so far down the line. We're anything behind us, that is the past, and we're here to modernize and forget all that. And this world talks about, like, fair enough, we can do that as a species, but what is the language? And when that language starts to get broken up, we start to have things like we touched upon last time. This is what it is. We're starting to by our standards today, and we can't do this. Lee, you can't judge these standards. You've got people reading something just a couple of days before I went off. Then now John's saying he was a sexist, and it's like, when are we going to stop? When are we going to stop judging people from our perceptions of how we see things now for the past? And Orwell talks about this and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because
absolutely. It's there's an obsession with trying to bring the history into the present, to find past examples and to bring them into the now, and to do that you have to cut every social consciousness that was around there. Like the most recent version of that I have is, are you familiar with the animated series The Animaniacs? It was an American thing done by one of the he was it Spielberg? I think it was Spielberg. He did a bunch of them, but those are filled with so many just off-color Jewish jokes, like that he would be crucified right now if he did that. And that's only 17 years less than, Christ, maybe 15 years off. And it would completely and totally redefine a generation to realize that we laughed at that and we knew it was a joke. But we're losing that sense of looking at the past and realizing they thought this was a joke too. They wanted to remove the N-word from, Huckleberry Finn. It's that entire failure of understanding irony and context that makes them want to rewrite history in order to fit into the current narrative. And that's so, I mean, as you've pointed that numerous times. It's being dangerous. It is dangerous as hell because it removes the important details. Details are the goddamn devil, and they will kill you every freaking time. And we're losing them day by freaking day by making these loose comparisons from white supremacists to Nazis, without appreciating, the political power that was instilled to them in the 30s to begin with. Like, don't get me wrong, there's worry there, but they're not there now. You have to be able to appreciate nuance, and we're not right now. It's all or nothing. And that's the hedge. How do you bring that dialogue back to, okay, sure, that's a fair concern, but how do you bring back the adult conversation in this era where, well, hell, kids my daughter's age, there are probably 2-year-olds with freaking Instagram accounts and like Tumblr pages. Like, how do you have that dialogue with people who have an equal voice and don't have like any contrarian like immediacy around them? It's all just an echo chamber, or those who disagree with you are immediately beaten down by those who are in your echo chamber. How do you facilitate a human dialogue when there's no one willing to be that guy without being called a troll? And I apologize for using guy, I guess the person, but I don't. I want to be optimistic, but there's a very real crevice here that seems to only be getting worse and not better with the use of various forms of social media.
Well, I think all this boils down to, and again, it is a theme that runs through a lot of Orwell's work, and it relates exactly what you're talking about. And I think when it boils down to, man, we can only ever concentrate on ourselves, and I think that starts with ourselves. Yeah, we've discussed this before, and then you've got to break it out. If you have children, and and it all breaks about looking at yourself, because I think it's half of. It's some of the things for years I've had people saying to me, "Oh, don't take it so seriously." And I'm like, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't do. But for instance, it's like, I've had a child, man. He's now, I'm not going to go. But for instance, I never fed in the Santa Claus bullshit. I never fed in the Disney shit. I never fed in that crap. I said to him, look, when he asked me questions, I would give him direct, straight answers. Now, to me, that's simple parenting. It's how you should do it. You just be honest with your child and guide them through it. But dude, when I'm surrounded, as you are, and we're all surrounded by everybody just playing bullshit of Halloween and bullshit of Christmas, and everyone, and you wonder why our kids are believe us. It's because and that's our response. One of the things that my generation, where we are, and you, it's one of the things I think we've been guilty of, and I don't think it's just us. I think every generation does it. We've kind of, by doing what what we're discussing, this whole idea of just passing everything and judging, we basically, all we're trying to do is ease our guilt complex and ease the fact that we've just have allowed. This is one of the things. This is why, but it all weaves into things like Orwell talked about, because it weaves into how. See, the reason there's a big state and the reason that they've got so much control, differing to what part of the world you live in, is because we've allowed that as people to go, oh, okay, I'll give up a bit of my responsibility and I'll allow the government to step in, and this is what happens. And then we get to our generation, we go, oh, okay. We think, well, we all ran around when we were all kids, man. I'm sure it was the same as you. We had a different. I talked to my son now. He's 25, and like I said, it's the reverse of what I was just saying earlier on. But they can't believe the freedom we had. That I was running around, when I was 10, 11 years old, running out. It's almost the whole kids. But that's But who's brought this? Who brought this world of fear in, man? We did. We allowed all this shit, man. I've talked about this before. It's really personal to me, because I had a generation of my generation, as I said before. We're there in the, I remember when we were all there, we were all radicals. We all wanted to bring down racism and all this sort of stuff. And what happened to us all? We all turned into Blairites. They all had 2.4 kids, all put their lives on and sit there now, and then now wondering like, the world's gone to pot. And I'm like, well, hey, we're responsible for that, because you all, for want of a better word, went, hey, I want to be on the winning. I want to be. How do you go back to it to answer your question, man? It goes back to that, as I said before. You can't answer for anybody else. I can't answer, but it starts with yourself, man. And it goes back to where you began this very conversation. As you said, we do live in this whole. It's great that we've got outreach. It's great that me and you can have this contact, but But what's great about that, we can build almost virtual, real. I think that's where we start, and I think this is it's making so okay. This tool, like as you said, can be is being used for for all the negatives, but equally, this is the things that maybe Orwell would have loved. Like, oh, okay, I love the idea that two people can connect, just even if it's just between them two, and only to buy it. Great, because that's what we can. Some of the positive things we can do in ourselves. And I think the other thing, and I've always said this, and this is why to me I love Orwell and highly in high regard. It's when we've all got that responsibility. It's not down to people. We've got to all be honest with situations happen. So what can we do, man? Be straight, man. I'm not trying to preach anything, but it's so wound up when I hear people or whatever, and they have a 4-hour discussion, and we'll all be talking like this, and then they go out to the real world, and they're like, "Well, you've got to have the same conversation outside. You can't just hold it in and have these like we're like some sort of Christian group behind the communist wall or something. Like, well,
right?
It can't be like that." You've got to be out. You've got to be truthful in real life, and I think that's been the problem. Is that everybody, this whole thing about PC and the offence stuff, like it's intent. I don't intend to hurt anybody, but if we can be subjected to the point where I got think, and then I'm supposed to feel sort of things, and so therefore my voice should be taken out of the equation. That's not right. We should all just go in to have an open conversation, and that means being offended. And I don't know. I can speak personally. I lived years down in South America. For years I wasn't called anything other than a gringo, English, and dude, if I got upset and indicated, and I would have got the first plane back home and gone, oh, the foreigners. You learn to deal with it, man. And that's the trouble with a lot of people now. Currency of you get more attention for being a victim, and that's half the problem.
Yeah. No, I wholly agree with that. And there, you said so much, and there's like 3 different spots that I want to introduce like a conversation. I'm not sure which one to start at. So I'll supposed to pick one at random. Mostly the most recent one because it'll be easier to follow. There is that need for, I mean, because obviously when they called you like gringo and things, it wasn't meant like, it was a small bit patronizing. It was mainly like camaraderie, like, hey, you're different, but it was still letting you into the social dynamic. They were letting you in with the understanding that you don't get everything, and they were basically giving you a leash saying, hey, if you make a faux pas or whatever mistake you make, we understand. They weren't accepting you they weren't giving you the same like fastidious guidelines that they have to deal with culturally. And that is so freaking important. But you can't do that anymore. You can't make small accommodations for culture because everyone has to be the same. Everyone has to feel the exact same way. And if you get something wrong, you should tear down your way of belief and say, no, no, I understand you weren't being mean, but it's still wrong. And how the hell do you make that line? Like intent means so much more than people give it credit for anymore. And that's frankly postmodernism in a nutshell. It's everything is ironic and therefore nothing means anything, and so we just basically have to control the first line of text and nothing else. And it's debilitating because how do you grow as a community? How do you again find the issues that you brought up before? Like how do we have this conversation between, well, as Orwell put it, the bourgeois and the proletariat and the middle and the lower classes? How do you find that middle ground between, well, frankly, any bipartisanship at all? How do you find those moments when no one's willing to acknowledge that I might be wrong, or not even that I might be wrong, just you might not be wrong? That's as far as it has to go. How when you can't entertain that point, what can happen other than a regression so intense that it literally leaves us beating on each other like gorillas? Like that's it. There's no other point to it, and that's depressing. I don't have an answer for that, and I mean, obviously there is an answer, which is frankly talking like this, but how do you, like, as an individual, facilitate that coming up? I mean, I work with teens, and I make sure that they realize that there is a line between, like, saying, you can't say that, that quote unquote, as the teens say, triggers me. And me saying, no, 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 no. He didn't say anything wrong. He just upset you. Talk about it and shut up. It's very important to have that switch in your brain, and they don't have it. And I don't know whether I had it at like 12, 13. Did you? I mean, did you have, who instilled that? Is it innate? That like ability to accommodate opinions that are antithetical to you? Were you taught that, or is it a human trait?
Well, okay, dude. I'll give you a couple of reflections on this, and
Sure.
and I'll give you my own personal experience.
Well, that's all we have.
I've said this before. Exactly, man. I mean, but I remember as a child when I was in the playground or whatever. What is this shit, man? We weren't taught this stuff, and I think it's all back down to, man. And I think it's one of the things that I think. I don't know. I've seen enough kids around the world, and I've seen enough things to sort of think it maybe it is human. We all get this, and I can speak true to that, dude, because I've lived. You know, that's what I'm saying. When you bring up your son as a white kid in the middle of Venezuela amongst people who've never don't even speak Spanish, they're on a whole different vibe thing, man. Yeah, this is the whole point. The differences in human beings, and this is, I mean, I've always thought it's fascinating. It's all about the intent. So, for instance, I've seen both reflections. I've been, like I say, I've been a son who was white on a beach, down in Venezuela, where and of course they want to know. Oh, look, your hair's different. Wow, you
Sure.
have different features. That's just human. And do you know? I wouldn't want it. That's what I love about us as a human species, that we have that. We want to reach out and we want to find out each other and things. That's what I think goes when your children in a room, and they will do. This is one of those things. When you get into, it's one of those things about. Okay, all right, man, we could go off to so many tangents, but it's one of the.
It's so bad
when it gets, but this is when it gets hard, man, because it's just quite a number of studies, and again, I've all these things. People go out and do stuff. But they have found that children are when they're very young what you could be deemed as racist, because they will find them baby, and that's us as species. It's okay, so we've got these natural things that maybe genetically we've got. Okay, that's a whole different subject. But what I love about us as a species, we can interact. Like I say, going back to, so they come to my son and go, wow, look, why have you got this? Equally the other way around. When I was a coach of a football team, and we had black kids in it. And we took them into parts of England. This is only a few years ago, and they'd never seen a black kid, and they wanted to touch his hair and all that. Now, depending how you react to that, that could be seen as the most racist thing in the world, and we should go and punish those kids either side of the thingy, or we understand it for what it is. And this is the problem with everything. I think what needs to be taught really. And man, if I've all went back to education, I think this is all things stems back to education, because it goes back to what I was saying before. We as have allowed all this to happen because we've gone, okay, well, we can leave that in the hands of educators, and they're going to do the good job of it. And that's been our problem, because we've let educators. It's like educational race towards who, by 16, 17, you've got kids who are pressure. One exam's going to make their life and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to, in a roundabout way, answering what I'm trying to say, is about intent. It goes back to what you said about your kids. But with Gringo, no, I never once felt offended by anything I said, because I knew it's intent. Dude, if someone comes up to me and calls me in the face and called me, hey, you Gringo, I'm like, oh, okay. But somebody calling me on a football pitch, hey, Gringo, hey, English, it's a different thing, and it's intent. And this is what we've lost in this world, this whole world of communications.
Yeah.
Everybody's lost the word intent, and you add that with this whole thing of what Orwell talked about, you add magic words in, and magic words have magic power. So if you have a certain word, it has, you play a card, and this, because then language can be only used by certain people, and it has certain powers, and then you couple that with everybody's getting lost into words are words for themselves, and you don't judge people for the intent, and that all goes back to these are the things that. Which is ironically, because I think it goes back to what the bourgeois and the proletariat. But one of the things that he was, because he went through it himself, but going through like he did, you learn things like rhetoric, and you learn skills, and you learn about that. You're not taught that, and they will wonder why people who are these private schools and public schools or whatever you want to call them, the actual skills of what it means, and that's what should be taught. We should be giving the kids from every level the rhetoric skills and understanding what intent means. So we don't have to, like you do, go to a 16-year-old and say, dude, when someone's calling you that, it's the intent that they're coming with, not the word they're using. But that's, dude, it's amazing we have to teach this in this age, because to me, that should be down to every parent teaching it. But if that's what we've all got to do, then we've all got to do that. And I think the flip side of that is, and then so go, okay, look, okay, I can take, because it's one of the things I found in this Charlottesville stuff and everything. It's you have one side, all the, you know, the SJWs and all that side, but you have equally the right giving it all that and all these all right stuff. But the minute someone says something against them, they're equally as bad. They were like, get this person fired, jump, and it's like, dude, you could chill out. And that's support the intent thing, and it goes back to what Orwell wrestles with, man. And I don't know what the solution is. I think the only solution is watch guard about what we use of words, and it goes back to what Orwell said. As long as we're all in our heads, always remember 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't equal 5, as much as they try to tell us. And that's the battle we've all got, man.
No, I absolutely agree with you. The thing, this is something that I actually wanted to talk to you about, because this was kind of this was the main thing, because back when we originally had this conversation, it was based around like Charlottesville and that whole thing. Like, there's got to be a line though when your dialectics are so bad that they literally hedge on violence, and there has to be a line there, right? Like, there has to be one where, when what you're saying is literally, we condone this, we encourage this, and it's so violent towards a specific thing. How do you draw that line between having a conversation and someone being so, like, whether it be, you know, a leftist saying, let's, you know, kill every Republican, or the, you know, alt-right saying, let's kill all black men, anyone of this thing. Like, there's got to be a line there between where dialogue breaks off. We couldn't have, like the Nazis did with the world, if we abided by let every person speak. Like, there has to be a line there between where condoning violence leads to, well, frankly, violence as an antithesis to that. And it's not pretty, and it's not right, but there has to be a line there. And where is that line in this society where we have these xenophobic, and we have these racists, and we have these people who are vying for not only like acceptance, but like some sort of weird silent minority majority? Like, what's the answer to that? Because well, frankly, you could simplify it even further. Just be like, what about like the Muslims that go into Western Europe and they're banned from wearing like the hijab and things like that? Where do you draw that line there? Because it is inherently kind of oppressive, but there's a choice in there as well, especially when you're in Western Europe, and it's so goddamn tricky. I don't have an answer. It just flummoxes me, and I want to talk to you about it. So,
okay, man. So we're stepping from landmine to landmine. The hijab in Europe, dude, man.
No, it's not here. That's all you. Like, here we're like, they get screamed at for existing. Here, you at least entertain the idea. Okay, they can exist, but let's ban the headgear. Which is its own version of problematic, but it's freaking tricky, and I don't think there's a right answer, and I'm not asking for one under any circumstances, because it's chaos. It's literally chaos, and there is no right answer. But there's again, it's destroying a culture. It's destroying the chance to get to know one another over saying, no, you're wrong. As opposed to having a dialogue, we're passing laws saying, no, you come to this country, you're immediately wrong. Now try not to hate us. And that's so fucked up. Like, that shouldn't be. Sorry, go ahead. It's bonkers.
Well, no, this is where you kind of tapped into when you mentioned postmodernism, man. It's one of the things that frustrates me the most. Is why sometimes I'm more kind of get passionate with people who kind of more passionate against people who sit there and all you hear about is how bad everything is over here and how terrible. I'm like, well, look, the reason we can even have the idea where a Jew can walk down wearing full, you know, all the regalia you can do, walking around with a full regalia. The reason we've got to that is because Let's get real with this, dude. This isn't all just arrived with by accident, magically appeared.
Right.
This has taken a lot. And I'll be real, pardon, a lot of dead people to carry where basically of saying an individual above the collective, and not man. That's led to the technology we talk upon. It leads to music. This idea that the individual is, I think, really, man, of what I'm saying about this whole, where we've got to have real conversations, because I'm saying that, why have we got a place? I mean, it's great. The idea. This is what I'm trying to say. There's very few places in the world where you could get somebody like in Europe where we walk around with wearing a Sikh and a Hindu and we can all actually have that. And even the idea of that experiment. Okay, we may not be at the perfect point, but this is one of the things that goes back to, man. It goes back to what you just mentioned upon. At the moment, we think the world's fallen apart, and it's like, no, dude, this is this whole experiment has lifted billions out of poverty. We can now have this, where we have having this discussion, and I think this is the thing. Everything gets conflated, and it's always by language, man. So it's a perfect example, like the hijab one. Once discussion, it becomes either, like you said, or I demand the right to wear this, and it all becomes, and it just becomes, like I said before, everyone's just trading power words, and it's like, well, you use this, and we get lost in this. And what we realise in all of this is that all the time we can have this discussion, that hasn't happened by mistake, and it's it's kind of the things that all mentioned and stuff. We have to all the time. And this is what I think at times. I think we all need to take a deep breath. And I said this last time when we talked about Charlottesville. It's like everybody, I'm not American, dude, but everyone's like, man, you're lucky to live in America. There's people who, are being shot, killed at, and okay, we're talking about race and collectivism and stuff like that. Okay, that's but at least you've got it's in the arguments discussion. At least we're in that phase of it. We're not bullet. And it's the nuance. I think that's. I think you're asking how do we get through that, and I think it's basically from both sides, and maybe and I think one of the things that's, I don't know, is the other side of this stuff. I mean, do you get to the point when you think, because you think a lot of this is just cult mentality, and it's all kind of like the people you're mentioning about, those people that want to hedge it, they're very much in a talk to anybody else. And I mention this because when you sort of conflate this about how cult mentality works and how people they don't want to, and I understand this because I was grew up in a very religious background. So when you're in that environment, you kind of like, let's take an example. Everyone outside of your circle is a heathen. They're all going to go to hell. So you've got arguments for every answer, every little quip they're going to come to you. You don't want to listen to what they say, and you want to separate yourself from that. So ultimately, what can you do with those people, man? I mean, maybe I think what you do, like if you were in kids in the playground, if you have one kid in the corner who's like, well, I want to start my own little group and I don't want to talk to them, how do we deal with them? Okay, dude, let you go off and do it. And that is ultimately, I'm bringing it really back in a long-winded way, that's what we've fought for and it's the idea of what we're discussing over and over again. That whole, for want of a better word, liberal idea of having discussion of it is because it allows that to happen. But for that to happen, it's maybe you've got to realize that maybe you're never going to, the people that want to go either side of things, you're never going to get them into a conversation. So then you've got to dilute, and this is what we're just saying. Yeah. If you want to dilute that pool, you've got to go, right, okay, then words are words. And let's get over this stuff, and then we can allow that. And we judge people by whether they do violence towards others. Because That's something we can all agree on. Nobody wants to have violence done upon them. And those are the very
Yeah.
and this is the point we live in. We like you were saying about your daughter, about the world we live in. We live in a world where everything's the old Bill Hicks joke. We're fed war, slaughter, disease, pestilence, war, pestilence, destruction, war, people feeding, we're fed all this fear, and you open up you open up your window and you're like, oh, the birds are chirping. The grass is growing. Do you know what I mean? Life goes on, and this is the point. And because we've almost been programmed to be, because of our DNA, man. Because look, we are. Of course we are. We're as a species we're always going to be on the edge, and that's how we've almost been wired. And that's what the corporations and the government, of course, they predicate on that, dude. But the only way we can get over that is to government itself do what we're just saying. Go out and play with your daughter. Make them realise that it's not all like this, and that life isn't. Take the power out of their hands by opening up and having discussions. And how do you do that, man? Then you do like anything else. You discuss with the people you do discuss with. The people they're not going to listen. And you think, okay, dude, I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm not going to waste my time, because that's the duality to this, dude. You can spend your lifetime trying to convert somebody out of something, and it ends up being your time and energy is wasted, because they're never going to listen, never going to change their opinion, and you just do all the talking, and you're like, well, actually, you're just wasting my time and energy. And you think, well, that'd be better served going out and trying to be a better human being than wasting my time conversing, trying to convince someone who believes that all Jews are, are running the world.
Right.
What's the point, man? You're never going to convince these people. They're just, what can you do? That's a bigger. It's almost like it's a bigger issue. It's like you've got a serum to wake a few people up, for a better word. But dude, if you're going to go up to a zombie and pour your serum in, and it doesn't do any difference, and these people are just inherent, dude, it's a bigger problem. There's probably issues about why are these people thinking like that. It's because they've been fed that, because they probably had issues in their childhood, their parenting.
Yeah.
Dude, you can't solve these people. You as a human being. So sometimes you've got to be going, okay, I'll use my energy on the people that I can, and hopefully I can make some change with. And that's why I think people like yourselves, and dude, I think you're doing anyone that goes out to the world and has a conversation with real people in real life and doesn't just shut themselves in a room. To me, I would hold the highest regard for, because that is half the battle, dude. Because we don't. Because as Orwell said, man, we don't realize half the power of love, half the power of us as being human beings. And this world, when we're fed this whole shit about us all being each other's backs, it's good at times just to put the humanity back out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Very long-winded answer.
No, that was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely agree with you. You're absolutely right. Like, fundamentally, what it comes down to, it's not a failure of the human species. It's a failure of the parent, of the society that's bringing up those people, that's allowing those people to go unchecked. But the problem is those people still exist. And how do you cope with those as a modern society when they believe that violence is the ultimate step towards achieving their goal? They're not necessarily achieving it now, but they're broadcasting it. Like, and again, this goes explicitly, and I apologize for this because this is a very Americanized version of it. The Charlottesville, they came with guns, they came with heavy weapons gear, they came with shields. How do you respond to that? Like, I can't like feel bad when someone initiates violence against someone who is literally there for violence. I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying I understand it. It makes sense to me. Like, if someone's coming at me, there was a guy I was driving on the road, and he walked at me with a bat. I was driving going about 25, and he walked across the middle of the road, had a bat in it, and I sped forward, and he freaking dodged because he didn't want to die. Was that the right course? He could have died. I could have absolutely killed that man, but he initiated violence, and I sped forward and was like, no, screw this. And I got out. I don't know what the reason was. Didn't question it. Was just like, I'm out. And when you have those people, there's like, if I had to stop them and like, hey, why are you doing this? How are you feeling? Like, do you want to get like a hummus sandwich or something? Like, there's no way to do that. And so like, is there a degree of violence that's okay? Like, clearly self-preservation is all right, but there's preemptively, especially when you're in, because as much as we like to pretend that we're all equal, there are inherently boundaries. Like, I, as a white man, have infinitely more, like, I'm going to be impressed upon far later than a black woman, infinitely farther away. And so there's going to be that moment where they get encroached upon. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, we have to preemptively kind of fight back against that when it's not in our direct, when it's not outside our window, as you put it. And that's the tricky part, because I believe it's necessary, but also every liberal bone in my body is like, that's freaking wrong. Don't do that. But I don't see another option. Like, I literally see no other option, because, and again, not to pull Godwin's law and to drag everything back into fallacy and oversimplification, but the Nazis won with a minority, and they seized power and they took over the entire goddamn country. And what we're looking at right now is a small minority, but if we become divided enough, that could be enough. And that's terrifying to me. I don't want to see us regress to that level. I don't want another goddamn 10-year century. I want us to just, well, as you were talking about, to look out our side door and be able to breathe without seeing, you know, one of the neighbor kids beating up one of the other neighbor kids with a club. Like, that seems like a good life to me. And my biggest concern is that line between the threat of impending violence towards our neighbors, and not necessarily ourselves, and where does that land? Like, how do we, because I don't necessarily believe that violence is the answer, but how do we, there's got to be a middle ground. What's the difference between conversation and violence? Is there a middle ground, or do we have to literally draw a line?
Well, dude, I mean, you're getting into, and again, I mean, this is the kind of context and the air of where.
Sure.
Well, it goes back to Wigan Pier, man. This is the era that George Orwell wrote Wigan Pier, because it's one of the reflections, again, it goes back to where we are, and I was trying to allude to earlier on, with again, it's the illusion of not being told history, because Orwell was right in this time, and it's one of the, again, I mean, the general people now will generally think that, hey, like you just said, that, you know, that Germany just happened by one little man. And this is the thing about Hitler, man. He wasn't, okay, we can look at him on the spectrum of madness, but do you know what I mean? He didn't just do it by bullying. He got a lot of people, he got a lot of people behind him, and he fed narratives, and what I'm trying to say was that, man, that was everywhere. It's like the Orwell he reflected on in Wigan Pier. He saw this. He saw that there's this bourgeoisie that allowed all this to happen, because doing this is, again, I mean, I'm talking very UK perspective, but dude, I mean, we had the royal family there in Nazi uniforms, little Nazi badges. This is all well known. It's not. I'm not kind of some conspiracy in that.
No,
we had black shirts versus brown streets, all walking around the streets of the UK northern cities and stuff, dude. And what I'm trying to say is that Orwell was doing this at the time. He was mentioning this at the time, and you know, how do we deal with this? Because what no one did then, no one listens to him then, and everyone just appeased and bent over. And to answer your question, dude, it did take someone like Churchill, who was well, dude, don't even get me started on Churchill.
He was synonymous with Orwell. He was like, he got it. He just drew the line because he had the power that Orwell didn't. I think they're fundamentally similar. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You were probably getting there. I apologize for.
No. My point I'm trying to make was, dude, I mean, again, if we were to judge Churchill by our standards, yeah, he was an absolute misogynist and all the rest of it. But what I'm trying to say was that it was a few people saw it coming, and then at some point, dude, I mean, this is why I hope it doesn't get to. I hope it really doesn't get to the point where when the question you just posed me, and you said to me, where do we have to draw the line? I hope it doesn't get to that point, because at some point we do have to draw a line, and this is exactly what the Brits did and Churchill did. And dude, I don't want to go through Blitz. I mean, it's really raw to people. This is what maybe the difference between Americans and English. Man, it's raw to my family. You know, it's really raw to me. Like, it's not. It's only a generation a bit ago that, you know, my family were being bombed on the streets of London just because of where they lived. And it was, I'm not saying we were righteous and stuff, but I don't want to get into the point where we have to go, right, that's the line we have to draw. I don't want to get to that. And I think we're way away from that yet. And this is one of the things this is one of my reflections of America. Dude, you turn on, this is what I was saying earlier on, you turn on the media and you put on anything, and it's like you're a hair's breadth away from the Civil War. Dude, this is the whole point. It's a very small minority, and this is the whole point. You've got one side going, I see, this is the whole rise of the white fascism going on. And it's like, 5-6 months ago, you had a black president, for fuck's sake, man. You need to chill out as Americans and just realize the scale of what it is, dude. You've got a few people. that are very much, I'm not saying, hey, there may be hundreds of thousands. Oh, let's take it up to 1 million that feel that way. But then equally, you've got 1 million people in America, man. If you had 100 people, we'd have one of them that's being an absolute pain in the ass anyway. A group of any 100 people, and So you think when you calculate that up, then you've got what? Good 5-6 million Americans that are just those people anyway. So, dude, when you actually sort of scale it all up, the fact that you've got 350 odd million people, and that everything's now being focused on a few people with torches marching through a street, and you've got this is the responsibility of your media, man. You've got all your media, and every single one of them, I don't care, man. They've all reacted like children. Like it's like the birth of the Antichrist. It's like, calm down, man. I was doing this the other day, like, I was thinking about it, like, what would they be like? Would they be exactly the same if JFK was in power? He was in bed with the mafia. He was banging hookers left, right, and center, taking drugs. He had his own. Dude, let's judge Trump on what he does. Let's judge these people for what they do. And it's like the Charlottesville. Okay, it's a small thing. Let's not concentrate on the small things. And remember, there's a lot of us in the middle that actually do get, as I said before, open our windows, get on our neighbours and get on fine. And it's that needs to remember, man. It's always, all the time, we're not to the point where we allow these people to do that, then we're not having to draw a line. And that's the discussion you need to have right now in America, man, as a general culture, is that you're not a hair's breadth away from a civil war. You're quite a way away from it. And if you keep reacting as everyone does, like on a trigger point, and start going, well, wait a minute, there's just a few people over there. 5-6 months ago, we had a black president, man. We're not all a bunch of racists, but that's because I said earlier on, because the narrative is being allowed by these magic words to deem everybody who's this a racist, everybody who's this is this, everybody's this. It's like, whoa, no, we're not.
No, and I think that's absolutely fair. I guess my only concern is that, like, and again, this might be, again, from it is naturally because, well, I'm American. From an American perspective, like, we're a joke now. Like, no one takes us seriously anymore. Like, in terms of like any international organization, our vote means nothing because of that small minority, because we elected one of the small minority, and by the power of checks and balances, that person has 15%, if not 30% of the power, and his less than 1% still equals over like 30% of what this country is represented by. And it's not to say that it's all unilaterally white supremacist, but there's, with the muck up of condemning like Nazism and things like that, it becomes inherently problematic in order to distance it from the, oh, we're not so far from a civil war, because, well, frankly, we elected him. He didn't win by a majority, but he won. And that's still problematic and indicates a disconnect between reality. And again, and this is separate, but I'm a fan of Hillary. But like, there's a very clear difference between, hey, I'm a neoliberal, I'm just gonna, steal your guns, blah blah blah, whatever, versus, hi, I'm unstable and like to talk about grabbing women, and we voted for that. And that to me indicates a fundamental breakage in the culture that cannot be necessarily pinned down by race or culture or anything in particular, but there's something there. And it obviously comes down to the media. Like, we all have our media preferences. We all have that one media that we consume religiously, that we trust because we believe it gives us our version of the truth. And that's inherently the base of that problem. The problem is, I believe we're already there. Like, I believe that, I'm not saying we're on the precipice of civil war. I don't think we're anywhere near that, but we're at that point now where, again, it's like the Gutenberg Press. We've got this new thing where we can selectively choose. We can get the same crux of the news, but we can't get like the fine details. We pin those details around us by how we choose to read the story. And again, the rhetoric, which I agree with you, is imperative in all upbringing. I'm going to throw Plato and Aristotle at my daughter as soon as she hits like 10. I don't care. It's done. Like, I didn't get taught that crap until college, and I was a terrible debater. She needs to be able to whoop my ass at 15. Like, that's what needs to happen. So my biggest concern is, can you fix that? Like, because we're not at the point of civil war, but we're very at we're very much at a point of either cultural apathy or antagonism. Either you don't care about what's happening, or you agree with it, or you disagree with it. But there's the apathy is not. It seems to be the majority. It's the it's not that bad. It's sort of this, we're not near a civil war. It's just some small group doing this other thing. But I feel like by not reacting, we're emboldening them. Emboldening those voices that are inherently toxic, the ones that want to deconstruct society and reduce us to what we were in the 50s, in the 30s, back when Orwell was writing about, like, I don't want to go back to those houses that are so terrible because of a lack of building like codes that they're literally protruding with moisture, and as soon as you blow down one wall and rebuild it, it just keeps on sputting out and insects pour out every night or when it gets hot. I don't want that, and I do legitimately fear that we're becoming so disenchanted with the idea of government as an infrastructure that we're willing to let that happen because corporate America has been, well, frankly, feeding us this, because that's what media is it's corporate America feeding us what to believe about the government, and then we elect them back in, and it's a cycle of getting more and more corporatists into office. Is there a way to break that? Because I don't see, how do you wake someone up who doesn't realize that they're dreaming?
Okay, well,
I'm not looking for a legitimate answer. I'm just that's my big problem is I don't see, like, where do we go as a people in the culture that we're at now? Because we can all say, oh, it's good to each of us have a personal conversation, but I can't force, you know, my hyper racist misogynist neighbor to listen to me when I say women can have good ideas too. You can't force it to happen, and to write them off seems dangerous. So is there a way to open up the communication wide enough that they feel safe enough to express themselves without feeling that by expressing themselves they're empowered? Like, because they have these small communities online where they get together and they just talk at each other. They create their own little circle jerk the same way every other perspective does, but the difference is they're more fringe than that, and so it becomes much more incestuous, much like Tumblr. And it's dangerous, and what can the internet do to fix that? Honestly, because it has to be the internet, because the media sure as hell not going to do it. We can't do it personally. We have to hedge upon some sort of combination of people. Like we have to all have to get to each other and agree that we need to talk to each other, and then facilitate that, not necessarily anonymously, but we have to. We've got to do something.
Well, I mean, again, man, I think it goes back to, I just want a couple of reflections on what you just said then, and I'm old enough to say this, and I'm happy to say this. There was never, it's like a lot of, I've been reading a lot of these high and mighty articles in the Times and the Telegraph about,
don't do that.
Why don't we return to the golden age of journalism? Like, there was never a golden age.
No.
That's the point I'm trying to make, man, and this is the point I think needs to be, again, and it's easy, particularly for us who are, concentrated on looking at the world, and particularly writers and creative people. We can be, by nature, it's not hard to look at it and think very doomtastic, but it could do. We have. It's like, again, when I read Wigan Pier recently, I'm thinking, okay, well, I couldn't go anywhere in the UK and find that anymore. We have progressed, and that's a great thing. And I think it is for whatever we feel about it, because that's what I'm saying. But equally, there's voices over here, man, that will go that we're, that we're some horrible place, and it's like, no, actually, we have got to this point, and I think at times it's that whole taking the breath back and going, oh, actually, we have got to that, where we are, man. And I think to answer the second point about how do you do it, and like you say, how do you talk to the misogynist who doesn't believe anything other than what it does? Okay, well, one thing we have to do is both agree on facts. I think that's why I love science. Yeah. That's what right. Secondly, we have to go back to, again, it's a simple basic thing, and saying, hey, look, I've always thought this, don't trust anybody that tells you they know all the answers. Trust the person that says they don't know. That's what you find. I mean, the higher you go up with people with knowledge, or the deeper you go down in your rabbit hole, you realize that the further you go down, there isn't any certainty. It's more of like, oh man, we're all just poking at the stick in the dark with the sticks, man. None of us actually know. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we can do. And I think the other thing, man, and I think it's again, it goes back to us what falls the responsibility to us as creative people. We can write the real reflections of life. How do you get across to someone who, dude? I mean, this is the idea. It's not a. It's proven over and over again, and there's countless amounts of people just in real life, not me going into literature and stuff like that, who were once maybe, thought one way about a certain race of people. They were once maybe brute skinheads, and now they're, completely, completely fighting the other side, the justice and all that kind of stuff. So people can change their minds and stuff like that. And I think when you listen to a lot of the stories, whether it's some skinhead who was in the walking around beating up anyone who was Pakistani because of the color of their skin, and now you talk to them and what was their wake up moment, what was their switch moment, was when they realized that they were just a human being. And then this is the whole thing, man. It goes back to this. Let's have discussions about ideologies and don't conflate that with race. And let's have ideas, and this is the thing, because ultimately, man, it boils down to there's some things you can't. I mean, that's why race is a ridiculous spontaneity about, because it's like, I can't help what colour skin I'm born in. I can't help where I was born in. I can't help what the nationality I am. But I can damn well and I should be able to stand up for my idea. If I've got an ideology, stand up for it, man. And this is the thing, and I think that's the thing where these things are broken down, and the reason that we can all have. Like I say, well, we can live in my culture. We can have Sikhs walking around with Hindus, walking around with atheists and stuff like that. It's because we've all just realised, hey, we're just human beings on that, and that's what needs to happen, man. And that, I think, it goes back to what we're discussing about, what Orwell says about, man. You've got to just go out into life at times, and I think it's always been, maybe I've always sort of had in my mind as a creative person, it's always been, okay, well, all I can do is just basically just hold the mirror up and say, look, this is reality. This is all, instead of faking it and putting all in the, like I'm saying, the distorted reality will be kind of us having this conversation now and going, dude, America's 2 minutes away from war and you better get your, and we're not. And that's the whole point. And the reason, I can say this properly, man, because I'm not just talking at my ass. I've lived in South America. I had to go into other cultures, and if I walked into it, if I walked into that with an attitude of like, I'm not here to learn, I'm not here to, and I know it all about everything, then you're going to fail. And that's how you do it, man. Because the way the barriers are broken down ultimately isn't any philosophy, isn't anything like that. It comes down to people realizing, oh, that's why. I mean, you're the perfect example, man. You've seen it in Houston this week. When the shit happens, human beings run to each other help. That's as simple as it is. Absolutely. Some white, he might be 99% there in his mind about, like, yeah, I'm pro those guys in Charlottesville. I think they're really right. Oh, I think this country's been taken over by a bunch. Yeah, he may be like that. But if he sees a little black girl drowning in the sea, he's not going to go, oh well, just leave her. He's not going to do that, man. There's very, 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 very few small people that would be like that, and they're mentally ill. Yeah, no, and that's absolutely the truth, and that's what we see, man. These are why we need to. These are what you see in the worst of times. You see what actually humans beings are like. We do reach out for each other, and it's when we all. It's what you saw in New York, dude. It's what I witnessed when I looked at the whole 9/11 thing. For a moment, everybody in New York was all kind of united, and everyone was getting on, and then it all just disappeared. And now look at it, man. Everyone's at each other's throats again. And you think, well, that's why. So it's there, man. All we've got to do is get over our pretensions as human beings to this idea. Like I said, our ego, man. We all think we know it all, and I know the right answer. And as long as you're getting currency for that world, and we need more people to stand up and say, hey, just be a human being. And half of it, man, is just having real conversation. That's why I think the power of just conversing. But in the age we live in, man, that's hard enough, dude. You try having conversations with people now. People don't want to do anything. People, I was at just the other week with my beloved, we were sitting there in a restaurant, and everybody's table was just sitting there with phones, and it was like, this is what's going on? People are losing that touch just to converse and be real, and that's half the battle, dude.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think pulling back from like the disingenuous or right, like that feeling of apocalypse breathing down your throat and believing it is what really ruins everything. We can be at death's door, but if you're not willing to have a conversation with the person you're going to die next to, it's not worth being alive for those final moments. You have to be able to even in your darkest moments, to kind of just look back and be like, I don't care if we're going to die. We have to be human right now. You have to kind of, even if it's just one person, like it's like a road rage incident where like the person gets out of their car and starts screaming at you, and you're just like, yeah, you're right. No, I'm sorry. I messed up. I cut you off. That's my bad. I'm sorry. Like, what are they going to do to that? They're going to beat you up for that? Like, that's they don't know how to respond to that. That's too human. It's going to make them feel like an asshole for simply even entertaining the idea of assault that they were clearly wanting to do when they step out of their car with whatever. It's calming yourself in the face of the storm. No, that's absolutely perfect. That's what we need to do. It's understanding that this is turmoil, but not becoming turmoil ourselves, not becoming feeders to that great, terrible id that exists in the back of our minds, that secretly longs for violence, that wants immediate satisfaction for the psychological wrongs or the philosophical wrongs that we see in everyone else. That's exactly it. We have to force that back, and that's really hard to do. Because I mean, me personally, I haven't been bred for it necessarily, but I see it in every single thing, like the way that they're talking about, North Korea and everything else. They want the violence. They want that us versus them. And that's the only way anything sells, is when you feel like you're personally being attacked, you're invested into it. And so, I mean, and maybe that is the golden age of journalism, was back when we actually enforced that necessity for truth, that minimal amount of reality in what we do, without the yellow, without the the patronizing tone or the disbelief about whatever happened. God, you got to replace journalism with something else, right? I mean, you have to. You got to figure out a way to rehumanize humanity, because the media has failed us. The internet doesn't seem like it's going to succeed. And so we're left with each other. We have to each bond on a personal level. We have to find our neighbor and shake their hand and be like, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. How are you? And we have to build those connections all over again. And that is the most terrifying aspect. It's not the media failing us. It's not the internet failing us. It's us failing us. We stop talking to each other. Mm. And that's where it all went wrong. I read, what was it? It was a Tagore book. I forget. It was about the civil war in India. And it opens with all of the Sikhs, Hindus, and Muslims having conversations and joking with each other. And then Britain annexes everything and then leaves. And suddenly there are brutally murdered and decapitated women on trains, and people are murdering each other, and it all goes to crap because they're being forced to see each other in a different light. They're being mandated, like, oh no, if you believe this, you have to go there. If you believe this, you have to go there. And it just led to chaos. And we're not there. Obviously, we're not there. But I feel like we're being groomed for that. We're being groomed for that self-isolation. We're not being told you have to go there. We're saying, like, if you want to be happy, you have to go that way. And that's so bafflingly stupid. Sorry, I'm just finally connecting everything into my head, because I'm a very dumb man, and I appreciate it a great deal. And it, you got to talk more, and that's super hard because no one wants to talk. There needs to be an app where you force people to have conversations with you. Like, when someone installs the app, they get immediately tracked, and when you're next to someone else who has the app, it immediately pairs you based on like random things that you agree on. Like, I like birds. Birds are okay. Cool. Let's talk about birds. Like small things. Like, do you like weather? Yes, much weather. And that's it. That's the entire thing. That's enough. Honestly, it is. It's, you're a human. You're able to say something besides Hail Hitler. That makes you worth surviving. And that's such a disgustingly low bar. And I apologize for going on a diatribe. It's just kind of all clicking in my head. And it when it takes you, you're my Dostoevsky. I'm sorry. You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing. So,
no, I mean, I think that to me is half the, as I said before. I mean, I think half the half the battle in this is gonna, if like I say, if we do want to get through to a brighter future, for want of a better word, for our kids and stuff like that, it's gonna be the breakdown of these barriers rather than the building up of these barriers. That's going to be the thing, and like you said, maybe it will be the small things, because I think, like you say, you're talking about, mentioning journalism and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not being funny, but I've had this all my life. It's been all my life. It goes back to Orwell, man. That's why I love Orwell. It's that whole, which basically accumulates right to the point where the 2 minutes of hate every day, where you got to go and hate. It's just that's because of, like I say, it's been a deliberate act. And this is what people got to realize, is that this, the whole idea, I mean, it's in some ways is just ease yourself away from this. And this is one of the, I've been sort of trying to, like I was saying before we went live, dude. I mean, it takes people to, to go out and try to build things and build solutions, and that means it's kind of half of the I think one of the weaknesses we've been told with this whole idea of not being told the truth about reality. We're either told that, oh well, hey man, if you think positive, you can change anything in the world, and that kind of bollocks, or you're told you're not. You're so insignificant, you can't do anything, you have no effect. Hey, just shut up and do your 9 to 5. And the truth is, the balance is nowhere in between those two, because for either side, if people think they can't make a difference in the world, and I always relate this to this. Okay, if you don't think you can make a difference in the world, try sleeping alone in a room with one mosquito. That's what you're like as a human being, man. You're that one mosquito in a room, and you. On the other hand, the positive thinking and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not all the sight. You can make it happen and stuff like that. But what we need is people who are honest to stuff and say, well, okay, instead of me just standing back on the edges, let's try to build things. And this is what I'm trying to say about, why I personally don't go on and I don't sit there and blow my trumpet, and I don't talk about a lot of the things I know about what's going on underneath, because I'm very aware of it. If you can almost trumpet things about what reflections you've seen coming, and think, and then it sounds all too fantastical, and I don't want to do that, because I don't think it's my place to say anything, because hey, it's not it's like I say, in the future. But dude, I don't want to get too deeply on the tangential one and all this stuff, but man, we're about to enter it. You can argue, and I've been saying for a while, I think we're already in it. But man, machines are getting to the point, and artificial intelligence, for want of a better word, which I don't like to call it, because I think it's just intelligence. But we're getting to the point, man, where everything is predictable. The idea we can predict the future is almost within our grasp, man. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm trying to say. I don't think people have really understood yet the power that's all in our hands. Right now, this internet is for us to use and to stuff like that, and we can shape it, and we can use these tools to do these things. And it's going to be it's going to be fascinating, man, what we do with these tools. And that's what I'm saying. You're saying, what can people do? And that's why I say to people, okay, maybe you can't build anything, maybe you can't do anything, but let's go out and try to react. And I'll say, okay, use Twitter, so use Facebook, use whatever we've got right now to spread what you want to see, the truth of it, instead of just going on. This is one of the things I say to people all the time. Don't just go on these things and just try to convince, like you said, the misogynist that women are great, or the racist that black, that anything other than their race is. You're not going to do that. But if you go into the world and do what you're doing, man, that's the power that we all have, dude. And you don't because you've got to think about this, man. I thought about this long and hard, dude. That's what I said about you before, and I threw the question back. What would George Orwell be doing right now? What would he do? What would he be doing with these tools? What would Dostoevsky do with these tools? What would all the great writers that we look up to, what would they do with the tools they got right now? Or would they just sit there and be trolls? And that's the thing. And you think, well, dude, that's what it's my reflection. I turn over to you, dude. I mean, I'm inspired by your work, man. And the only reason I can read your work is because you put it up online. You wouldn't know how many people I know personally that, oh no, my work's my own work, and when I die, it's going to be seen and illuminated to the world. And I'm like, forget this tortured genius bollocks, man. God, get it out there, man. And I think this is what I said before. The power of what we've got right now, even if it is clumsy and it's crappy and it's creaking, well, at least we've got that tool, man. And I think this is what I'm saying now. That's why, dude, keep doing what you're doing. Keep illuminating the world and put in what you're at, man. Because that's what you can do, man. That's a great, very, that's using your synopsis, man, and you're using what you're doing, and you're having effect, and that's all you can do, man. And I think the other point of it, man, and I've always thought this, dude. And I think the sort of strap line to all this, man. I think with everybody, and I think everybody needs to chill out and stop taking themselves too seriously, man. That's the strap line to all this, man. People have got to start taking themselves way too seriously, man. They need to chill out a bit, man. And so,
no, I absolutely agree with you. The interesting thing, and again, this goes away from social issues and more into the classicists that Orwell and then Dostoevsky and a myriad of others, but they freaking hated technology. Like the greatest writers that I know all hated new things. Like Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, both hated trains. They hated that idea of it. And Orwell himself was not a fan of industrialization, was not a fan of canned foods, which, don't get me wrong, nutritiously not that great. And he made a really good point by saying, I wouldn't be surprised if it turned to be worse for you than real food. But I mean, that was a little duh from this perspective as a current generation. But it's fascinating how all of these writers seem to hate, like they seem to immediately distrust modern technology because we're living in an increasingly next generation comes every 2 weeks. There's always a new thing. There's always it's accelerating towards. I don't know what the end result is. I'm guessing we're all just going to explode because our minds can't handle what's happening. But the artist seems to immediately distrust reality, and then once they see a use case for it, once they can say hey, I can use my art for this, then they sort of shift towards it, which, I mean, I'm wondering if that's the way we should replace engineers with a handful of artists who are just kind of really obnoxious and uppity about it. But if they can find a way to turn a new technology into a legitimate piece of art, not like this is my fart on MP3 and WAV file played simultaneously. I hope you enjoy it. No one wants that. No one wants that. But some sort of middle ground, where there's, here's a short story I made based on this, I don't know, what do you call it? It's an atmosphere track, where you record various places and play them side by side or whatever, some sort of culmination of humanity and bringing it forward. Some sort of the internet doesn't have to be bad. It's watching this, that, and the other thing, and then coming up with something on your own. I feel like that's a decent way of bringing technology back a bit. It's not all about utilitarianism. It's also about, and not to pull the, because it is vaguely religious, but the soul of art, the soul of humanity, it drags it back into art, because without art, we're basically just machines. Not to say that machines can't create art eventually, but if they do so, they will do so based on our input, because we are inherently creatives. We tell stories. That's what we want to do. We want to convey ourselves in a myriad of different ways, and that feels like it's being lost. It's being lost in the name of something grander, but also listless and gray. It's not there for us. All the social media in the world isn't there for you to be an artist. It's not there for me to show you, oh, here's my latest book review, or here's my latest thoughts about this other thing. It's there for, hi, I got my haircut at blah blah blah. It's pseudo advertising and self-aggrandizing, and that's it. But it's empty. There's no value in it. We've got to take that out. Not that it's going to go away. We've got to create a tier system where, if you want, we've got to bring back the idea of journalism, but in a creative endeavor. But that's not a novel or a short story. We've got to create a box for people who, I want to say people like us, but that sounds disgustingly patronizing. But for creative people to be like, hey, I'm not just trying to blow myself like Steve Bannon. I want to actually create something that is of value, and I don't know whether it's good or not, but I'm welcoming your feedback. I'm not looking for oh, you rock person who I've never met. We want to talk honestly, and that's going to be a pain in the ass. That's all I have on it. It's going to be a pain in the ass because you have to try and separate the chaff from the wheat, and that there's no guarantee on that. But I feel like we have to at this point. Like we have to be able to differentiate, like the people who use social media simply for themselves and those who use it for, I don't know, something better, but for art. You know, like these conversations. It's just like, hey, I want to talk to someone for 2 hours. Can we do that, please? I don't care who you are. Like if you're free, talk to me. Can you imagine how much better your life would be if you could just get on a conversation, have 2 hour conversation with anyone, and then just be able to broadcast and be like, here's some things we talked about. It doesn't matter if they were like offensive or anything. Like this is art. This right here is art because it's an essay. It is to try. We are trying something, and that's human, and it's beautiful, and it's flawed, and it's wonderful. And it's not always going to go well. It's not always going to be pretty. A lot of times it'll end up with someone crying on the floor, but you know, you do your best, and that's basically art in a nutshell. So tying it back to you, thank you for having me.
No. I mean, dude, I mean, what you just I mean, I was just sitting thinking. I mean, basically, what you just described then is basically what you said. Basically, like you want a network of people. So maybe we should call it N99, and maybe we should.
No, exactly.
But what I'm trying to say, man, the point I'm trying to make on that is, this is the whole point, man. It is like bringing for the old analogy, like bringing the mountain to Muhammad, man. It's a difficult.
Exactly.
That's back to what I was saying before, man. It's a very, because you realise that you go down so many rabbit holes. But the point I've always said to this point, and I think it goes back to what it is before. This is where it steps into human beings, man. Because as I said before, before I went live, dude. We're all just prodding at sticks in the dark on this, man, and that's the point. And half the joy about creating anything when you're doing anything like what you just mentioned, the whole idea of having that environment is there's a great joy in it, man. This is not get all doomy, man. There's a great joy in kind of like when you meet people that are like-minded and you're just having a conversation, because I personally, I can say this before, I know what happened tonight. This will all go away. And for the next 3 or 4 days, I'll be certain bits of this conversation will stem up. It'll give me inspiration. That's like you said, dude. This is. It's not a chore. This is the thing about the deprogramming stuff. People, all the stuff we've been fed on TV, even the way that our music's been given to us, how many beats we listen to per minute. It's all designed to make us consume. That's all it's done.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying, I'd argue before, 9/10 of the world don't live like that. They live in a reality where they don't get to sit and watch TV every night. They have a normal different, and they understand this, dude. That's why I'm more optimistic about the world, because I think, great, the people that feed all this war, destruction stuff, they're just in a small little minority, dude. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about them. The rest of us are getting on with life, and we're having these chats. And what I'm saying, man, the solutions coming, and I again, dude.
It's here.
You don't know how
centralized so everyone can do what you're doing with me right now. They're like, hey, talk to a random idiot for 99 minutes, and then they'll be like, yes, please. It's like chat roulette, but more coherent and with a longer time scale.
Exactly. But what I'm going to say on that, dude, I'm sitting here biting my tongue because I've been told not to purposely. But no, I'm head to, because I could sit there but we're so close to what we're doing in 99. And the point I'm trying to say is, man, it's exactly inspired by what you just said then. Because the first phase of that, it's just generally, will be the testing phase, and that will be exactly having people on it who then. The whole concept of what I've just said there, man, of this whole what you just mentioned about, is having a way we can. Across borders, across gender, we can all see each other for what we are and signal each other. So I know that because for instance, you've gone on there and you haven't just had a big view count, but you've been, whatever. Then it's almost like a ranking belt in jiu-jitsu or something. Like, okay, Jacob's he's gone on this, and this is what I'm trying to say, man. This is why it is truly something completely. I don't talk about it a lot, but man, what's about to be unleashed is. It's almost complete. I know this for a fact. It's untried before. We're about to unleash an experiment on the world, man. I could be hunted down in 5 years' time. Like, what the? He was the one that launched Skynet, man. What have you done? but equally, on the other hand, though, it goes back to what I'm saying before, man. It's just going to be. And what it's that whole process what you just mentioned about, because it's at times it's like, that's what I'm saying. Gutenberg doesn't get remembered for the press. We remember all the things that happened after it, and this is what's coming from. Not man, I'm just a little app. There's people doing all sorts of things all over, and that's the general progression I think is going to happen, because I think once you take I don't know, man. It's the old thing. It's once you take it's taking the one kid in the room. If you've got a kid's party, dude, and you've got one kid in the room who's just that one kid, and he's hyped up on Pepsi, Coca-Cola, he's running around and screaming. You take him out of the party, and everything's chilled and fine. But all the time he's there, everyone's stressed, everyone's getting wound up, everyone's like, oh, why didn't that parent sort that parent out? And the whole atmosphere dude, and that's what's happening in the world. Where I think it's weird, because we're living at a time where we've got everything focused and thinking, it's like I say, we're all focused on that one kid in the room. And there's people in little corners all around the world, all building solutions that's going to go, okay, let that little kid have his little time with his Pepsi world, and the rest of us are going to move over here, and we're going to be acting like this. And that's what's really inspiring, because George Orwell, and it goes back to, let's take it right back down to Wigan Pier. When he's talking about the whole of Wigan Pier, I think that the point about the point he was really making was that certain people have no power at all. Yeah. And I think the difference is now we've all got. This is one of the things I love about the internet. It's given us all the power. If we've got the ability where we're not being shot at, we've got the ability to have electricity like we have. It's brilliant, man. This isn't being used just by aristocrats, and that's what's and it's what we do with it, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what it all boils down to. This is just a tool. It's what we do with it, man. But I think it goes back to what you were just saying, that it's the solution's coming, and I think like anything else, and this is why I try to look at it. Well, I try to be realistically, dude, and I think that yes, we're at a tipping point, and we could go one way or the other, and that's why it's imperative. I say to everyone else, that's why I think it's kind of the theme of how I think about everything in life, dude. You've got to participate, dude. You've got to jump into that river of life and join in with everybody, man. And that's like you said. That's why I loved it, man. I think one of the things that's going to really kind of kick me in my mind is that the line you said about you want your daughter to kick your ass in debating. Brilliant. That's exactly the point. Dude, you'd say that. I mean, we laugh at it, but man, there's people out there who think, no, I'm never going to let I'm always going to beat my daughter at everything, just because it's, yeah. But dude, that's what I'm saying. And these people in some ways have got all the microphones at the moment, and we're thinking, oh man, everyone in the world's like them, and it's like, no, they're not. most 9 out of 10 people. I've always thought this, man. If you put 100 of us on a beach, we'd all get on fine. And it's just the scalability. And once you get to big scales, we allow these people, obviously, because look at the game, man. Look at the game that is corporate America, or that is. You have to be a ruthless, nihilistic, all the worst elements in human beings. It's what human beings would have gone out and, what led a man to go out and hunt a 6-foot blue lion is the same thing that leads a man to go and become president of the United States, man. But the trouble is, the person who was going to hunt the lion's got maybe a bit of power because he brings his lion back into the tribe and they're all feeding on it. Trump has got the power to nuke the world. That's the difference. Sorry. All we can do then is take the power away from him, man. And this is where it gets into the whole thing. This is the whole element of what I'm trying to do. We're trying to do with all these things, with these cryptocurrencies and stuff, is take the money. Because you take the money, you take their power. And you watch how much things will change. Just as I said before, pre-Renaissance, after Renaissance, things change immensely and really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You take the money, you save the world. That's pretty much it. And the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies at this point, that's the best hope we have. Everyone calls it this and everything largely because of whatever, but the goal is to find value outside of the infrastructures that have us all trapped at the moment, and that's the key, period. And it's sad that it got to that point, because I'm going through some American history. And I apologize, I'm terrible at European history, so forgive me. But America seems to be founded on the idea that as long as the government gets to wet its beak on corporate America's teat, everything's fine. like Jacksonian revolution. Like that entire thing was basically just, hey, we'll give you some money and you give us a bunch of money. But also our money's not worth any money, so you're just giving us money. But you can sell our non-money shares to other poor people who don't realize it's worth nothing, and then we'll all be rich and it'll be fine. And that was literally 50 years after America was born. Like that's the crux of this entire country was the no, brown people can't vote, no, poor people suck. All right, what else you got? And that's the entire thing. And so really what's happening now is no different than anything else that's happened in the last 200 and some odd years. I'm sorry, I'm bad at math. It's there's this 99 and everything else. This is the answer. It's taking away the voice of the moderator. It's giving us a chance to be upset with each other, with being, oh no, he said something bad, and then being able to move on from that, to be able to give a dialogue a chance to happen without like I don't know what to call it, a bombing of negative like feedback. You don't get, I mean, obviously you do because you've got forums, this and the other thing. But like, if you didn't want that, if you wanted to step back like you did today, you could do that, and you could just do your job blind, and you would still be living what you sold them, but not to their specifications. You would still be doing what you said you were meant to do, because how else are you going to do that? You are always honest to yourself, and that's what we need more of. It's none of the you don't do what I want. Like, no, you gave this person your time to create something to their whim, and if that doesn't agree with you at a certain point, that's fine. But they didn't lie to you. They didn't lie to you. Your views just changed because you didn't entirely get the nuances of them turning left when you turned right. And it doesn't mean they're wrong. It means shut up and wait. Like it's engage in the dialogue and don't be a douche. And that's it. That's what we need as a culture, as a world. We need to be able to insult without being crucified, for lack of a better word. We've got to be able to be iconoclasts. We've got to be able to say, that's bullshit, here's why. We've got to be able to be the mods of culture, of globalization. We've got to hedge it towards the direction of tolerance as opposed to reactionary. Because Lord knows no one else is going to. Because they don't see the value in it. They see themselves as being right. And that's the end of the discussion. When you're creative, you understand that inherently those voices are good. That's how dialogue happens. That's how, like, even in a novel, in a podcast, in music, in instruments, that's how it happens. It's dimorphic views fighting each other and creating art. And that's what we do. And that's important. And it's been lost to, well, frankly, the media, because what do you call pop music other than media, really? The entire thing is just, it's been lost, and we need to find it again. And we're here now. We're here doing that now, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't mean to be self-aggrandizing to you, but like, this is super freaking cool. Like, being able to just have I would never have met you in my entire life, and to be able to have this conversation with you numerous times is absolutely brilliant. Like, it is everything I wanted my future to be, that and virtual reality, but still, like, mostly hedged on this, like that and killing like 3-dimensional ghouls, but whatever, it's fine.
No, I mean, this is exactly the point I'm making, man. I think that's what's really, I don't know, it's kind of what we've been discussing tonight, really. It's kind of like, this is the greatest days to live in, man. I mean, dude, I really reflect on this, man, because it's kind of like, I'm in my mid-40s, man, and I felt the same as we were in mid-20s, and I just looked at everything, and I thought the Internet of 94 was going to give me all this. I thought, here we go, and I just saw it all just got, again, goes back to what I was saying before, my generation's all got lazy, went, oh, well, we'll hand it over to these people, and And it took till 2010 to, for like in 2008 and that, and before Facebook and Twitter arrived, and it was like, whoa, because everyone just became lazy. What I love about now is I say to people, jump in, dude. It's so exciting. And that's what I'm saying, man. And it's one of the realities what we're trying to talk about. People just need to step back and think, wow, man, anybody can step up and do something and have a voice. Man, that's so, you don't realize how, dude, you don't know how amazing, or how, this is one of the things I get so wound up at times by Americans. We're like, dude, you're lucky you live in the part where you can sit there, like, for want of a word, lazy fat cows, and go, oh, man, there's people I know right now in Venezuela. There's people I know, friends in Congo. Dude, they don't have to sit there to pontificate about what word, how many words should we call it, should we call people Z and Zar? They don't have all that bullshit, man. They've got to fucking fend for their lives. And this is what I'm saying. So when we're in this position, and we've got this whole, as I say, new paradigm opening up in front of us, and we've got the ability to jump in, shape it, and not only that, we can, like I say, have some of the things that we dreamed about. That's what's so exciting about this. Is what I'm saying to people when they're like complaining and sitting there going, like, dude, jump in. If you don't like something, change it. Connect with somebody. Move. It's some ways what we were saying before, man. A lot of it is people their own selves, and they've got to, step up in a little bit, really, and you go, okay, if you want a better life, and you want better people, and you want to think better things, then reach out and make the connection. If not, we can all sit in our rooms and do bugger all, man. Then me and you never connect. And that's dude, we're no special people. This is the whole point of it. Is that everybody could be doing this around the world. Everybody's got Google or Skype or some sort of connection, but people aren't doing it because it'd be like, oh, what's the point? It's easy to sit and switch off and just put some bullshit TV on and think, fuck it. Put Game of Thrones on. That's the. But mate, that's the hard work. This is what like, you go back to the classics. This is what all philosophy, every person all the Greek people talked about. What hopefully your daughter's going to learn is you've got to better yourself as a human being, man. But hey, all the time it's easier just to sit there, drink the Coca-Cola, eat that Domino's pizza, watch Game of Thrones or whatever, and then get annoyed by everything and just get outrageous, and you're going to go onto this really easy tool that's been built for you, where you can go on Facebook and Twitter and outrage all your crap. And hey, that's great, because it's the old analogy of, man, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's half the problem, man. People have got to learn, just because they can, they shouldn't. That's self-responsibility, self-discipline, man. But that's yeah, as I said before. Not only is it a hard path to go down, man, it's something that people don't want to hear. They want to hear, oh, I want the easy way, man. And that's what the corporations, that's what the government's feeding into you, and say, hey, yeah, don't do anything. It's all going to be done for you by somebody else. And that's half the problem, man.
No, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. It's a failure of culture and country, because country and culture are identical at this point. We've got to do better. That's all I've learned in the last 8 years, is we have to do better. We can't reduce everything to binary. Like, it's easy and it's fun. Lord knows, victimizing like others is delightful. I love feeling like a bully and being all big and bad and strong, but it's not terribly helpful in building a world that I want to live in for my kid. So, like, I'm at this point, I'm building a world not for me but for her, and at that point, like, the boundaries change a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer like, oh, hey, I want to beat up on people who disagree with me, and now it's all like, I want to build a world where everyone's willing to not beat up on my daughter for disagreeing with them. Oh God, this is awkward. High school me, I'm sorry, but I failed you. And there's no beautiful answer to that, because we're bound and bred from the get-go to attack each other. Like, even in my high school, when we were doing the right versus left, like, they were clubs, but they had debates. They would have debates, and they were nothing but just talking points and vitriol and like little snide comments that those on the other side would get. It would bolster their own support and convince no one. That was the entire thing. And it's disgusting because we're better than that. We have been better than that. We've like the Renaissance exists, the Greeks exist. Hell, if you want to like push it a little too far, the Romans exist, and they're that's human. It's what we can do, and right now what we're doing is we're writing bullshit on Tumblr. There's nothing permanent about this era. It doesn't matter. This entire generation could be wiped out, and we'd be not wiped out. Obviously, we'd still have kids, but like that entire section of the world could still be deleted, and all we'd miss is some cultural context and memes. Like there's only a handful of things that we'd actually miss, and it's not enough. It's not enough to justify what we consume, what we do, this, that, and the other thing, and that hurts because I don't really feel like much happened in the 1890s. So I want to do at least better than that. Like I want to do better than them. Like the post-industrialization, but prior to World War II, I want to do better than that. That's my low bar for my generation. That was meant as a joke, but honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, no, that's legitimately okay. Like they worked their asses off, didn't contribute much, and then died. That's like, I mean, not in terms of like, I mean, obviously, as we read in Wigan Pier, they contribute a bunch of Khol, this and the other thing, but like in terms of art, in terms of human experience, it's very, very limited. Not to say they didn't benefit, other people, but they didn't benefit humanity as much. I can't think of a decent novel made in the 1890s. I can't, or the 1880s, frankly. Or 70s. 60s I can. 70s, 80s, and someone can correct me. It's fine. But yeah, no, there's you gotta want it, and we have to want it, and we're not there yet, but we'll get there. With you at the head, I think we can get there. I'm sorry, I'm putting this on you. You have to do it now. I wrote it down in my notebook right here. It's yours now. I wrote it's your fault. So if this all goes pear-shaped, it's your fault now. Just so you know. I have deemed it so. I circled it. It's super serious now.
No, if it's in paper, man. If it's in paper, then it's definitely serious. But dude, do you know what I've always thought about this, man? And I think this is and I really look at this, and maybe I kind of, it's one of those step back reflections. It's like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
So same we are about the internet, man. And it is. It's almost like we are literally like kids. We've all been given microphones in playgrounds. But man, it's the same thing about what you just mentioned then about, there was nothing written in the 1890s and stuff like that. But I've always thought this. I thought, I bet there was. But just because they weren't given the publishers, just because they didn't know the right people, just because, how do we know that this is what you think, okay, I'd rather have a world where, like we are right now, where everybody's got the microphone and da-da-da-da, and we hear a bunch of screaming and shouting, but hey, out of that maybe come one person that uses that tool. And I think as we progress more and more of it, I'm like, okay, isn't it better to give everybody the opportunity? Because I reckon there probably were hundreds of great books that were written or were never written that escaped humanity because there's no bank of, for all about, well, no kind of deposit or repository of information anymore because it's all cut with middlemen, man. And I'm not going to go back into the whole of what N99 is about, but it's that those small steps, man, I think are going to be huge steps because I've always thought this before, it's one of the, I love one of the things I love about when I look up to America and think, dude, you've got some of the most entrepreneurial people that are probably in a jail in America because their entrepreneurial shit was selling a product that wasn't deemed illegal by a certain government. And if we could just break all that crap down, man, then look, this is the point. We deem them bad. They're thrown into jail, so that their lives are roughed up. Then their kids is roughed up, and all these unseen problems have all been caused, man. I think this is one of the things that I always bear in mind, man. That a lot of the crap that we live on has been caused by laws that are written by people who are long time dead. That we're all just suffering the echoes of all that shit, man.
Yeah. No, I can absolutely see that. God, there really should be a law in place to reevaluate every law in the book, every this, that, and the other thing, just to make sure that they're still rational. We hypothetically have that in America with, like, you know, the Constitution, whatever that is, I don't even know. But no one does it. Like, we've got people who want to rewrite the Constitution, but no one who's read it. No one who actually wants to engage with the issues that the modern era comes up with. And God, what do you do with a law system that you're bound to but no longer abide by because it's beneath you? Because you can't just say that without sounding like some sort of like patronizing Henry Thoreau, like, I'm just gonna go live and not pay taxes. Like, it doesn't work. How do you invite a conversation with that? I mean, because you've got to talk to people, but you've got to be on the same page that it's worth discussing everything. And again, it all comes down to dialogue. It has to. It has to always come down to dialogue. It's not a matter of saying, "Hey, talk to your like representative." It's no, talk to your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor's neighbor. Talk to the person at the coffee shop. Talk to the person, you know, who is asleep at, you know, 5 in the evening. Like, talk to them. Those are the ones you need to talk to. You get to know what their problems are and to understand their circumstances. Buy them a coffee. Engage them as human beings. And it's very hard to do that. And again, there's a myriad of systemic and economic reasons that that's not necessarily tenable, but it's still worth pursuing. It's very, very much worth pursuing. I basically, the entire point of that is I agree with everything what you just said. So, yeah, no, it's a tricky situation. Mainly from where my perspective is based on the fact that it involves reevaluating every point of current politics. It involves redefining your mission from changing Washington, from changing your city council, to talking and not trying to convince anyone of anything and just getting to know each other, which is terrifying, because what if you're wrong? That is the most terrifying thing that a human being can come across, like, from religion to politics to anything. Like, what if you're wrong? What if you can convince that there is no God? What if you can convince that there is a God? What if you can convince that, you know, people are abusing healthcare to the point that it's not necessarily tenable? What if there needs to be more rules? What if people need to die in order for that to happen? It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And I'm personally not ready to have that conversation. I mean, I will when it happens, because I'm not about to say, no, you're wrong because I'm uncomfortable. But like, I'm not ready for that conversation. But I want to have it just because I pride myself on not dying in stupidity. That's pretty much the only guide I have to my life right now, is being smarter than when I was born. That's it. I mean, you've got that too, right? Like, you just not being quite. I mean, we're still pretty dumb. I mean, you can never really know anything, but like, yeah, like you just want to be a little less dumb exiting than when you came in. That's really the crux of the entire thing.
Yeah, damn right, man. And that is exactly the driver of everything, man. And do you know the half of it, man? And I tell you, this the other half of this equation, man. I think it's this other half that's not spoken about a lot, man. Half of it, I tell you, is getting over the shit. That's half the problem, man. Is the stuff you think you know question. That's what I'm saying, man. That's why, as much as it's scary, I think to me it's like, why does someone like, why would I rather dive in the ocean than go paddling in the paddling pool? Because I'm like, no, I like the idea of going into that. And it's the same what I'm saying about the world, why I love the world that's coming, because I think the whole point is that I think what we're generally going to start seeing is virtual communities, for want of a better word, start doing. That's what's going to be the general progression of, I think, the next 5 or 6 years. We're going to get people going, wait a minute, just because I was born in Europe, or I was born in Slovakia or Germany or whatever, I don't have to be German. Why? Wait a minute, I can have my own community, and we're going to take this all virtual. This is what the internet's going to do, which is going to be a whole different experiment, because it goes back to that as well. I've thought that along the lines of, okay, so we've got virtual communities, are we just going to carry the same human problems across? We've just got a bunch of virtual communities all not talking to each other. But one of the things that I think you can do, man, and that's the whole point, and I think you just set it upon that, and I think this is one of the great things about when you do generally have mixed around creative people, as you're saying earlier on, that you don't come a lot of creative people who have the idea of they know everything, and it's very much a we don't know anything, and I could be wrong. In fact, it's constantly actually most of us going, hey, we're lucky if we ever succeed. Most of what we do is literally just prodding in the dark with a stick, man. And with that whole analogy is like that. We don't know what we're doing. And if someone says to me, point the stick over there, I'm like, oh great, I'll go and point the stick over there then. Because if you can see something, I can't see anything. I can see pitch blackness. And that's what you said before. That's the some people are scared shitless of that and they don't like that, but if you can open yourself up to that, there's a great freedom of being surrounded by people who are all in that same mentality. Like, none of us know what we're doing. Can we just be all in that one space where we just know, hey, none of us know what we're doing, but at least we're not firing guns at each other and thinking we know each other's right. And just that alone, man, that alone is a very I don't know. It's like an Alexa. It's a very it's like if just that one thing could happen, we'd be in a much better place. Because that's the trouble with all these everywhere at the moment. Everybody, like you've alluded so well tonight, everybody thinks they know they're right about everything, and we could just have a space where we're like, this is a bunch of people who are like, we don't know anything. We don't know anything. That is what we need to create. We need to create a community of people who are, literally, I question everything, and that community needs to be spread out, man. Because what you realize is, there's so many people there in that community, and then you want to, as I said before, man, I'd argue 99% of humanity is in that community. Because anyone who goes, I know it all, as I said before, don't trust them, man, because they don't know anything. Who knows anything about anything? None of us. None of us. All I know is that I'm lucky enough to I made it to this conversation. That's great. Exactly, dude. And I've got one more day. That's it. That's the only thing I can hold on to, man. I don't know anything more than that.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and that's basically it. It's, to me, life is learning more every day, meeting someone interesting every day, which, me working at a library is brilliant for that, because they're from the poor to, well, I mean, the elderly rich. The modern rich just buy libraries and don't read them, but like the elderly, like, they come in and like, I know enough about money to not buy books that I'm just going to read once and return. And so they come to the library and they talk to me and they tell me these stories about their lives, and the young kids and these hyper homeless adults, they come into me and they tell me these stories, and they're heartbreaking and they're brilliant and they're beautiful, and they're like, I'm glad that worked out for you, or I'm terrified that didn't work out. You should really probably have $1 million right now because you were hit by a bus, but let's not worry about that, and let's get you that book you're looking for so you can pass your whatever. Like, and that's the beautiful part about meeting people in any customer service position, because I did it too when I worked at, well, every job I've ever had. It's meeting those people and asking the right questions, which is what you do, when you do what you do. It's about getting to know people, not through what they want to tell you, but what you can get them to tell you. You phrase the questions correctly, and you reveal something about them and about yourself. That's the hedge of a good interview. You ask them these questions, and you grow as a person by realizing they have a reason to believe that. They're not just being bigoted. They're not just being old. They're not just being poor. They're being people. They're just like, yeah, no, that didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, it worked for me. Well, it didn't work for me. And that's great. That's a foundation. That's a bridge that can be built and create something better. And as long as you're willing to like have that conversation again and again, when they come through, if they come through, or just even willing to say like, hey, I enjoyed talking to you. Do you want to do it again sometime? Like, adult friendship is super weird, at least in America. I hope it's easier over in the UK. I doubt it, because you're all, less emotional than us Americans. But adult relationships should be so much easier. You should be able to walk up and be like, hey, I like your shirt. Would you like to get coffee? Like, that sounds vaguely sexy or whatever, but like, it doesn't have to be. It's like, I respect your sense of style. I respect you. I like you. Let me get to know you. But it's creepy, and it shouldn't be, because we're all in this together. We don't know anything. We hope to know something. We hope to scratch the itch that is existence. And having these conversations is the closest I ever get to finding God. Honestly, like this is it. This is the closest I ever get to it, because when you begin to be able to distance yourself from yourself and talk to one person and feel like you're connecting, that space where you meet, where you're able to actually twist someone else's mind in your hand and be like, that's how they think of things. That's it. That's humanity. That's a glimpse of the whole of human consciousness. It's beautiful. And we've lost that, as we've talked to a myriad of times tonight, and I'm just hyperventilating over it because that's what I do. But it's absolutely wonderful, and we need more of that. And it's easier when you're, I guess, me in a customer service position, because you can find people who are like, well, the elderly are always looking for a conversation, because most people look at them like they're fucking dying. They're like, oh God, you're like dying. I'm going to smile at you and walk away. I'm like, hey, how are you? And they tell me 25 minutes of everything they've done this day, another hour of what they did 30 years ago. And it's all freaking mind blowing. It's all beautiful. And I love it. I absolutely love it. They are my favorite people. The 12 to 14-year-olds are like, I don't know, whatever. You got any food? I'm like, no, I don't have food for you. I'd feed the little lady before I feed you. I don't care. Like some nights I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'll feed you because you're clearly dying, but whatever. But God, we disparage the elderly so much. We don't treat them like, it's one thing to say like, I respect you. It's another thing to say like, I'm interested in what you lived through. Like, how many of the World War II veterans that are alive right now would be worth infinity more than what I'm saying right now? Can you imagine, like, if you were able to get a World War II veteran? It's insane. But how do we get to them? Because it's not easy, and everyone just kind of treats them as this bygone era. Like, even now, we're taking their history, the one where they literally fought Nazis, and reappropriating it to Donald Trump. Like, that's unfair to everyone. Like, read Slaughterhouse-Five and you realize how fucked that is.
Yep.
There's absolutely no reason to it. Like, they lived that, and I'm sure they're disparaging Donald, but like, they saw their best friends and their childhood friends and people they knew for literally 15 goddamn minutes die. And we're taking that and we're molding it into this shitty little, like, I don't like what him does, so therefore he Nazi. And no, he might be a Nazi, but he's not a Nazi yet. He could be. He's a proto-Nazi. That's fine. A fascist. I will take a fascist every time, because what's his face? The Italian guy.
Mussolini.
That's right. That one. He was an idiot, and that's absolutely perfect for Trump. That makes perfect sense. The guy read a dictionary backwards, like, in order to seem like he was smart before a press interview. Like, that's legitimately that's Trump to a T. But Nazi is an entirely different thing, and it has a culture behind it, as we discussed earlier. Like, there are people who lived through that, who fought through that, who died for that, and there's nowhere near enough bodies in this minefield to be calling anyone a Nazi. Fascist, I agree with. Nazi, that's heavier than any political ideology. That's a world event.
Yeah.
That's like me saying this conversation is on 9/11. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. It's or even like an Arab Spring, whatever liberatory thing you want to do, depending on the way you view this conversation. It doesn't work. And again, this goes exactly to what you were saying before. We got to change our language. We've got to change our language and turn it into something that is nuanced, that is willing to be wrong, be overly enthusiastic, or to be corrected. We've got to be able to have that conversation. But like, no, I disagree with this. You need to just frankly shut the hell up for a little bit. Let someone else talk, and let's just get to know each other. And I apologize because I've been talking for so long. I feel like you want to tell me to shut the hell up, but
no, it's the same, man. It's kind of like, it is the name for the community, isn't it? You know, stop taking yourself so seriously, man. Just chill out. That is exactly it, man. But I mean, I think, dude, you know what's fascinating? I want to relate that, because I'm exactly the same. I love talking to the old guys who used to fight. Because we get a lot of Americans because they're coming for the cruises. So do you know what's fascinating? Every guy I've ever spoken to who's fought in that or had any reflection, they don't want to talk about it, dude. And that's absolutely not. That's so black and white to what we are right now. We're in this generation where we want to tell every little one of our feelings to everybody about anything. And these guys sitting there, like you said, sitting there, friends that's murdered in and they don't want to talk about it. They're like,
no, why would you? It doesn't help anything. It's literally an emotional black hole. It doesn't help anything.
Exactly, but man, I don't know, man. I think kind of that's to sort of really wrap this round and kind of bring it around. And I think, if nothing else, man, I was just reflecting on this just today, thinking if because again, I can almost on a very good day in a certain view, almost see where George Orwell lived on that island. And I think, man, I was thinking of it. If he was around now, right now, or he'd be chuckling to think, man, I wrote a book. And it stemmed into this conversation that two people have had across the continent. That to me, that the fact that he would never have seen this coming is exactly what I love about people being creative. Because he never saw this coming. He never saw that we'd be sitting there in 2-hour discussion and it would lead into different things about when he's sitting there writing that book in one little room under, in a little island in Scotland, man. And that's what I love about creativity. That's what ultimately, as I said to you before, man, we just got to do what we do because we never know where these, for want of better words, the seeds that we sown have flown and what they thrive into, man. That's just, I think that's just a general, kind of bottom line. Dude, I'm going to call it a night, man, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning, man, and we've been...
go to bed.
No, man, we're going to go down too many rabbit holes and we just end up going...
That's always true. That's always true with us, man. That's every time.
But no, man, we'll, like I say, man, we'll have to do this again soon. But, dude, it's been... Because I think kind of the question I'm going to leave this... I want you to leave with, man, it's fascinating, really, because of... out of George Orwell, and you obviously, you sort of note down to maybe like, 1984, Animal Farm, and then there's the people put Huxley in, obviously with Brave New World, man. And I've always been this yin and yang with me. Like, are we more in Animal Farm in '84, or are we more, are we more Brave New World, man? And I that's the question I'm going to leave to you, dude. So about what would you say we are, more Orwell, or are we more in the Huxley nightmare?
Me personally, I thought this was just a repertoire for everyone else who was listening. No, for me, we're Huxley, period. The opioid epidemic, like, come on, look at that. Like, that's... we're declaring, like, 1984 levels of, like, government intervention for the opioid epidemic that the government basically sanctioned. Like, we are so Huxley, and Huxley really enjoyed his LSD. That's all I've got.
Right, perfect. Well, that, my friends, is going to be we'll make that we'll put that a flag in the sand. Then we'll make that the next conversation, man. We could do the whole Brave New World one, man. But dude, it's been insightful as ever, man. And I'm just gonna call it. I don't know any better way to do it, though.
Absolutely.
Life is people.